Any announcements, Jeff?
Just a couple. Todd, concert?
Yeah, well, yes, we have the concert, our last concert of our series. We're rescheduling from summer rainouts, Marley Reedville this Wednesday night in the park. That'll be at 6 o'clock. And then also, just want to make sure people know our garage sale is coming up too, September 29th through October 1st. And the 100th anniversary celebration is on the 23rd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. A lot of family events planned for it, meet and greet and things like that. There's also a couple of contests that you can sign up for prior to the event.
Yeah, and there's like a road rally
Yep.
thing that,
Road rally trivia.
yeah, and then obviously you have to call to sign up for that. Do you know if they've got the minimum number of cars
We
yet?
do not have the minimum number yet.
Okay.
So,
If you're interested in it, it'll be a Riverview-based road rally, where you want to call it.
11 to 2?
That's from 11 to 2, but I think the
The whole event goes from like 11 to 4?
Yeah,
And winners will be announced at the event.
yes.
So it's
The
11 to
scavenger
4?
hunt thing, whatever you want to call it, is the
But the
night
whole thing is
before.
11 to 4?
11 to 2.
It's almost like a scavenger hunt that they were gonna do.
Yeah, so.
But they don't
It's like
have-
a trivia-based
Mm-hmm.
thing, so, yeah, they're looking for a few people to participate in that. Any other things?
Yeah, Kevin says, would you mind giving us a little update on the Shred Day?
Yes, so we had a great turnout again on the 26th of August for our Shred Day. Most of the residents were from Riverview, but we also had residents from Trenton, Southgate, and Brownstown as well. We plan on doing it next year in some capacity, and we look forward to it.
Oh, very good. As most people like me, I usually get rid of a heck of a lot of paperwork, and it saves a lot of time. Thanks, Kevin. Anything else?
I believe that's it.
I do have a couple. We want to wish have condolences to the family of retired PD Lieutenant Bob Queen, passed away in late August. And we wish him, his family the best. And also, I'd like to acknowledge our golf course superintendent, Scott Mincher. I guess tomorrow is National Recognize Your Golf Course Director Day, or
Superintendent Day?
Superintendent Day, so.
Got your
Congratulations to him. And then, if you don't mind, I would like to take a moment of silence in remembrance of September 11th. We all know what happened, that many years ago, so. Thank you very much. With that, I think we're ready to get started. But before we do get updated on the special projects, we have some representatives here from the Sportsman's Den. I feel they got something to fill us in on. Whoever wants to be the spokesman.
Do you want us to step up?
Yeah,
Sure.
Why don't you grab a couple of chairs and
Grab a couple of chairs.
Yeah,
Come on up, we'll make room.
join us up here.
We don't mind standing, we won't be that long, we promised Jeff and
Hi.
Randy, so, with your permission, Mr. Mayor, can I just jump in?
Right ahead,
All right,
yes.
my name is Rob Young, I've been fortunate, I guess, to say that I've represented Mr. Orlando at the Sportsman's Den for a lot of years. In that capacity, I mean, we've had many meetings, and when I say many years, it goes back to early 2000s. Many committee meetings with your different various groups, and headed by Randy and the different administrators and the like. Of course, recently it's been with Jeff, trying to resolve matters over there as it relates to the golf course and the operations and the like, and also with taking into concern and consideration what Joe's been doing. You all know that Joe's been trying to retire for a lot of years. We've had those discussions. We've met with a lot of you and talked about that, and I'm pleased to say that he has reached an agreement with Jeremy Siraki here. He'll talk about himself in 2 seconds. I just wanted to lay this out. And hopefully, the Sportsman's Den will take on, it'll continue in operation, I mean, in providing food, beverage, entertainment services for the city, particularly for golf course, hopefully, and the banquet hall and those kind of things. He's an operator. He operates a number of places. He'll talk about it, like I say, in a second. And our reason for being here, if I can, aside from that, is during the process that we were working through, the due diligence, it's a complicated cross easement, reciprocal easement, joint, all kinds of different matters there with the Sportsman's Den, your clubhouse with the properties and the like. It's all good. There's nothing bad about it. But in the process, what we did is we sort of came to the conclusion that maybe it would make sense if what we did was to take over a little bit of the sections of the property that adjoin the two properties, the corridor there as you come in, and if I come in the front door, the city to the right, the Sportsman's Den to the left, there's a couple of bathrooms down there that we used to dispute about over the years. We used to call it Potty Gate, just when we had nothing else to talk about, I guess. But with the help of everybody, Joe and Randy and the like, we always work through those issues. And we thought it might be helpful since, as we understand it, that is not necessarily an important service area for the clubhouse and the like, that it might make sense that we take over that area and not have this imaginary line. It's not imaginary from a legal standpoint because there's a survey, but that corridor, just take that and give that half of that corridor to the Sportsman's Den, let them take care of it, maintain it, insure it, improve it, and the like, and include in there the bathrooms, the men's bathroom, of course, and the women's bathroom. And it would be Jeremy's responsibility to put the $40,000, $50,000 that's required to rebuild or clean that up or remodel it and the like, restore it to the condition that it really needs to be in. And we looked at, in exchange for that, obviously, with all the agreements we had over the years and joint maintenance and cost and all that goes away. So that's eliminated. But I think more importantly for everybody, including the golf course, we would leave the front door open for the corridor. So golfers that park maybe to the east of the facility would still have the opportunity to come down that corridor out the back if they wanted to, or go in the clubhouse directly, whatever. And then also, conversely, when they come off the course, if they want to use the bathroom, even though it's Sportsman's Den, it would be open to your golfers and the public at large as such, because quite frankly, Jeremy would be looking to having them come into the Sportsman's Den. There's going to be quite a remodeling effort and an effort to incorporate those golfers before and maybe after, and then working with the city, hopefully with some events going forward, and just maybe taking a new look at it. So when we did this, we drafted up some easements. I gave them to Randy. I'm sure he shared them with Jeff and the like. And what we're asking for is just to clean this up. We have some cross easements like this where we have, the Sportsman's Den has interest in some of your property. For what purpose, we're not sure. And you have interest in the Sportsman's Den property, again, for what purpose, we're not sure. If you wanted to use it for dancing purposes, you can just come down and dance. You don't have to worry about an easement or drink or eat or whatever you want to do. But in any event, we clean this up. They've all looked at it. They think it makes sense. And if you're so inclined to agree with us, we clean up that corridor area. We take over the bathrooms. We make all of the improvements. It's on us. It doesn't cost you a dime. And we go forward. We clean up those. You sort of have your area, and we have this area over here. There's certainly a joint parking and maintenance issues in the front and along the sides and along the back, but it just may be something that we think is a little more cleaner, a little more efficient, a little more less expensive maybe for the city, and more of a benefit to us for dragging in as many of these golfers as we can. So we're asking you to consider that. I hate to say this because everybody's under a time constraint, but if we had drafted some of these, I know you can't take any action tonight, but with your attorney, I certainly would like the opportunity to try and work through some sort of resolution and get this up on city council for consideration as soon as possible. I was told when I was walking in, we had taken that storage area as you walk down the corridor to go out the back. Mr. Pentock said that the city wanted to keep that. That's fine. We can just...
There's a storage area back there, is that correct?
Yeah, the golf course uses it.
Okay, all right.
It's right when the door, as you're walking out the door, it's on the right.
All right.
So that's fine. We can resurvey that and leave that be if we just looking at it to square it off, but it's not important in that regard. But with that being said, I think what's more important is the gentleman that's interested in this purchase and who's under contract, and we're getting real close to a closing, maybe to give you just a little bit of background and what he has in mind and what restaurants around town he owns.
I'm Jeremy Siraki, live in the area, live in Grosse Ile, have several restaurants, love the restaurant business, but kind of culmination of what I've been trying to do is the Orlando's facility with banquets, and I think it's a good opportunity. I know Joe for a long time, and Joe's ready to go, so I'm going to help Joe out. I think it's a good opportunity for all of us. I think that I have a lot of ideas that will help bring this area back. I mean, the golf course is thriving. I see the cars every day, and I want to be part of that. I think it's, we can both work together, the city and myself, and I do want to thank everybody. I've never seen a city work so diligently to try to make something happen, so I do want to thank you on that, because this is kind of the first time in my career that I've seen this kind of action, and I appreciate the work that we've been doing. But yeah, I think if we can clean these up, it's a good deal for Joe and I, and I think we'll make a very successful spot over there in Riverview.
You want to talk about Tarago's and all of that, just so they know who you are?
Yeah, I own Tarago. I'm sorry, anybody who doesn't know, I own Tarago. I own Major Biddles in Wyandotte. I own Lloyd's on Groseal, Mamacita's in Trenton, Rocky's Roadhouse in Trenton. So I've got a pile of them. I've got one going in Taylor too. I always partner up with people that are good for the business, good partnerships. I can't do everything myself, so I do have partners in most of my restaurants, and they're the operating partners, and I'm the kind of the guy that puts it all together and makes it work.
And let me end by saying this too, I was remiss in not saying this. Jeff had called, what he's talking about, he called together all your department heads, or most of them, or at least the necessary ones. We met at the Sportsman's Den, and we had input from everybody, and it was a great meeting. And when you're able to get everybody together at one time, I don't think I need to tell you how things get expedited. And so with that effort, we've sort of seized on that in moving forward. And really, this is just the last leg, I think, that's out there. And if we can figure out a way to put this to bed, then we close.
Well, first, welcome. Hopefully the sale and stuff goes through. But, I mean, the reason you're here, there must be some issue that needs further discussion or resolution. I'm sure we can get that from Randy and Jeff, and we
Well,
can
it's going
discuss
to
that.
come, once we finalize the easement documents, we'll be in front of you for approval to execute them. There's an issue on sales price of the hallway and the restrooms, and that's something that we have to work through. And we just want to keep the council apprised of what's going on. And I think it was important that Jeremy introduce himself to the community. So
It is good, and it's, it's nice to meet you, get to know you, and obviously, we try to be as business friendly as possible, so I'm glad the feedback you gave us from our staff, and they're cooperating and doing the best they can, and hopefully you can get past this, and not that we want to see Joe gone, but if he wants to retire, then congratulations to him.
It's coming, Joe.
So with that, I'll just let you go, and I'll talk with Randy, and I think we're close to our easements being finalized, some changes, modifications, and hopefully we'll be back shortly, because we're just sort of running out of time.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you
for your
all very
time.
much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 2-1, special projects report. Jeff?
Yes, let's start with Mr. Dave Skirdo. He sits in front, so we'll give him the first chair.
Three things this past month. The first one is the RFPs for the golf course site and the property on Grange Road. We are continuing refining them. Right now, we've gotten proposals to conduct property appraisals and a wetland analysis for each site. Second one is cannabis. We were flooded with questions following the vote, as you can imagine. Folks wanting to come in with the building permits. Yet Jars came in with 2 sets of permits. We had to walk them through the process. Same time, some others were calling to see how they get their zoning approvals started.
These are people that have already applied, and now that
Correct.
we're moving, okay, so
Correct.
they're just getting their answers.
They're just getting there,
Okay.
yeah, starting the process.
All right.
And third one is we met with the Downriver Community Conference. They are starting a small business assistance program, which came out of a 2018 plan that the city was involved with. So we met with them, pledged our support, and just waiting for them to get back to us.
Is this the Daryl guy we met
Daryl,
with?
yes.
Okay.
They're just waiting for them to get back to us on what they need from us, and we're ready to help them out. And I think it's a much-needed service for this
Yeah,
entire
it'll be
region.
like a consulting service for specifically the 5 communities affected by the closing of the coal plants.
Yes.
So they received a huge grant to provide the service to us, and we're going to do our best to make sure that all of our businesses can take advantage of it.
So that's the top priority things we've worked on. I'll open any questions you have.
That's it for me.
I think we're good.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
Mr. Sohayo, C.E. Rains.
Good evening, everyone. We're winding down some projects. The water main on Cleveland Road is down to a couple punch list items. The sectioning program is approximately 75% complete. That's moving along very well. We will be starting a joint seeding program shortly. And otherwise, we're doing some site plan reviews. The tunneling project, the connection to the tunnel is in the final review stages. That's it.
So how, when do you think DUA would approve that tunnel connection?
We are hoping within a couple of weeks.
Is that before winter project that would start, or would
We
that
have
be
to wait.
spring?
It may not be this year's project. no.
Okay.
And that's the connection to the tunnel under
That comes
Pennsylvania?
in from the Huntington subdivision across 4th Street down to Pennsylvania.
Okay, thank you.
So how, in the joint seal and cracks and striping, is the boat ramp still
It's still on.
this year or next year?
It's going to be done this year. I'm hoping. I'm meeting with the contractor tomorrow to put some
Okay.
pressure on him.
The only reason I ask is I've gotten questions, that's, so I want to be able to speak to the residents.
He lost a few days during the rain period that set him back elsewhere. So whenever he gets set back elsewhere, kind of snowballs on us. So.
Thank you, Sohail.
You're welcome.
And Kevin Sisk is filling in for Tetra Tech again, so
So our gas project will be complete by the end of the month. The overfill will be done as well on the south side of the slope, so if you drive down King, you can see us filling there. The RNG facility is still planning on commissioning next month in October,
Wow.
and we should see some remediation in front of the golf course starting in the next few weeks as well.
Do you think, is there gonna be another planned closing of Stonewood to complete that?
No, it was bored, or they'll be boring it. They laid the pipe out, welded it, X-rayed it, and that should be completed now.
Okay, very good.
And just to add to that, I know Kevin, I had an opportunity to meet with Kevin and Scott, and they picked out new trees, so trees will be
Mhm.
planted, and in front of the golf course, it'll be sod, and like down the maintenance area, and some of the little they will do seed, and so it'll be all cleaned up, so the remediation is, got to be approved by us, so when we take a look at it, we'll make sure it looks good, and we were able to, I don't know why they decided, but I think it was because of cost, that they didn't open cut. They actually bored underneath Stonewood, which was
Okay.
great, because it would have been closed a
Yeah.
lot longer if they had
Yeah.
open cut that, so.
And the methane gas is being pumped out. It's not going to your gas dryer.
No, it's gonna go to 4th Street, and then it'll go into their
You want
main.
landfill aroma?
Well, no, I've had a lot of people tell me that
Agreed.
we're going to start burning methane, and I'm like,
No.
it's not the way it was explained to me by the city
Absolutely not.
manager.
It's that quality,
Right.
but it's not going to their households.
No, the
Directly
longer it
from our
travels,
plant.
the more you get paid.
Yep, that's the written effect, so.
Mhm. Right, anything else?
Nope, that's all I have, sir.
Well, then, any other business council wants to bring up at this time?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question about Areas Healthcare, Health Center at Fort Duquesne.
Mhm.
What was the agreement that we had with the owner about cleaning up the Fort Street side of that property?
Dave?
They have to keep the area clean. They had actually 3 phases originally scoped out with time frames. Phases 1 and 2 did have a time frame, and they were met. Phase 3 was development of 4th Street that never had a time frame established when they would get that developed. Their responsibility to the city is keep that clean and meeting our blight standards.
So there's no deadline for Phase 3 of developing?
No, not at that time. When that agreement was done, we're still coming out of that recession. And they didn't have anybody in place. They were just trying to stabilize it where the former shopping center was.
And in your opinion, it's being kept clean?
Oh, we got to keep on them.
So I'll take that as a no.
That was a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, that area does look pretty bad.
Yes.
Any
That's all
other
I have,
business?
Mr. Mayor.
Now it's time for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the mayor, you know the speech, Elmer, come on up.
Yeah, Elmer Trombley, 17738 Ren Street. I want to get this straight right now. I went to the ordinance people about signs being placed in the easement. And she told me that Dave Scudo told her don't move the signs. Now, what's the deal with that, Dave?
Well, First, let's address me, Elmer.
Oh,
So-
are you
so-
allowed to put them in the easement?
Well, we'll get a clarification, Dave, and I don't even know if it depends on what sign, what kind of sign, but are signs allowed in the easement between the sidewalk and the
If we're
street?
talking about the political signs, the direction received by our department was a hold off on having those going through and actually physically picking up and removing the signs. And we were waiting for new direction, and we'd be happy to, follow whatever direction we get.
Yeah,
He said easement.
he said easement.
Easement.
If they're,
And on the easement, they always have to be
they
picked
should be
up.
removed on the easement.
Correct.
So-
It's on
If
private
somebody's
property that I
speeding,
told you to
communication, I'll
not
get with the
remove them.
officer.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so, yeah, to be clear, if it's an easement, it needs to be moved.
I can-
But, I mean, other than that, they're on private property, we're just, they
I'll
can
send
be
an
there.
email and go back
Okay.
after the meeting.
All right.
Well, I don't understand
So,
that while I was on the council,
Uh-huh.
that ordinance was passed, that they don't go on the easement.
correct, and they should not be on the easement.
Okay, but he said to the ordinance officer, leave them alone.
Okay, I think we need more
That's what I want to
clarification.
know.
I think there was a misunderstanding.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh?
There was a misunderstanding. The understanding was,
You can't tell me that.
well, yeah.
I don't
there's-
buy that.
There should be no signs ever on an easement for
I
any
know it,
company.
But they did it.
Or
and
anything.
The ordinance officer said, leave them.
Well,
They know
we'll speak
better.
with them again.
We'll get that cleared
Yeah.
up.
He'll
You will
speak
not
with them
see any
again.
signs on an easement. We'll get that cleared up for sure.
All right,
They can only be on private property.
okay, we'll get it straightened out, Elmer.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
anybody else?
Not sure if this even works, but.
No, but just speak up.
Okay, so I'm here to spend a few minutes addressing the recent letter that was, the Congresswoman Debbie Dingell's, press release about the Arkema property. I have a couple of statements and maybe a suggestion, related to that press release. So in that press release, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with it, but basically, she states that she had been working with Arkema or EPA to get an assessment done on the property, to get some cleanup, so that essentially, eventually could be redeveloped. And the question I have is severalfold, so I'll start with the first question. She mentions in that letter that it's up to the EPA to engage with our stakeholders to initiate the Superfund, which I'm assuming is the Superfund cleanup process. It's not stated in the letter what she's trying to initiate, just that she's trying to get the property cleaned up. So going back to some previous council meetings where Councilman Norton had asked Mayor Swift about how often she's been engaged to take action on that property, and the statement was it's been a long time. So knowing now from the last Brownfield Authority meeting, Chuck had shared with the group some meeting minutes from the meeting that he attends when he's your deputy at the Downriver Council, the DCC, for the Brownfield Authority. And in those meeting minutes, I see lots of brownfield projects from surrounding communities, but I see nothing on the docket for Riverview. And I've seen no mention about our interest in getting that property cleaned up. So my comment would be to you, Mayor Swift, knowing that you attend these meetings regularly, is
I do.
please bring it forward to her. She doesn't seem to be aware of what the city's interest is in getting that property cleaned up exactly. And I would,
And we have, and I want to interrupt you because
Okay.
I'm not going to put a time limit on you. We've had those discussions. I know this is the whole campaign thing with the accusation.
I've
is
been
that
involved in this
sitting
since
on my butt
2018,
for
so it's well
forever,
before I
and
started campaigning.
I'm getting the whole blame for the whole Arkema situation. And you do understand that you have to build relationships with these people, and Dingle and EPA and all that. Now, the difference here, I brought up the DCC, the difference is DC is working with Eagle, not EPA. It's a whole different monster. And EPA recently had a new administrator, so, we have to get them, got her all caught up to speed. This stuff doesn't move fast enough for anybody. I get it. But it's a very slow-moving process, and we are taking steps, and I think Dave Scrolls mentioned a few times that there finally is, Arkema's finally agreed to start marketing the property for whatever the purpose is.
But you had stated that there was already an entity interested in buying the
There
property.
is, yeah. I don't know who it is. I don't do everything for the city. So
But it's
there is
continuing to be
interest.
marketed. There's nothing finalized with this company about
Not
purchasing.
as far as I know. But we've had, now, it's been a while since we've had a meeting. With the last one, I think, was probably a year and a half ago in Wyandotte with some representatives from the EPA. But, I mean, since then, there hasn't been a lot of movement. So we are doing our best to keep the pressure on her. I mean, we can't force Arkema to clean it up. They have to be willing to
If
clean it
there's
up.
a pathway for the contaminants to the public, you can. That's the whole part of the Superfund process. So what type of feasibility assessments being done to find out where the contaminants are and if there is a pathway to the public? That's exactly what's going on at the McLeod site for the past, well, they're starting the assessment now, but.
And you know how long that took, you know, and we, again, all I can
How long
really
has this
say is-
process been ongoing? That's the question. It's not stated in her letter, press release, about when she
Well,
started this
I've been
process.
involved probably the last 3 or 4 years. So, and that's just, you know, the timing of that. So, I mean,
But if it was Maroon, it would have already happened. I mean, because we're a public entity, we have, what, no leverage? We are stakeholders. Why aren't our voices
Well, we're
being
stakeholders,
spoken
but
of?
we're not the ones, we can't finance the cleanup of that. And we're doing our best
Exactly.
to get somebody else to pay for it. And that's just, you know, we don't want to be like, and Trenton did the same thing. They didn't want to take on responsibility to clean up that property. The city would go broke in a minute if we were to do that. And I'm not going to
Right,
put
but the
the city at
Superfund
risk.
process can make
So-
Arkema responsible for the cleanup.
Yeah, and that's what we're working with Debbie Dingle to make sure it happens. She's the only one we got to work with. We don't have a choice.
I understand.
So we're trying to deal the best with the cards we have.
I understand. But it seems like because, again, using
Seems
your
like,
statement,
you know,
it's a political, campaign season, all of a sudden it's reappearing.
Well, see, and that's
from
the
her side.
problem I have, Brian. Just because it's a political season, now we're accused of, only things happen when there's politics and elections involved. That's not true, and that's where I really get offended.
Well, but I'm being accused of bringing it up because it's a political season and I'm running for council. But that's not true because I've been involved in this site.
And you have.
For a long
I
time.
get it, and I appreciate what you do for us with the CAG meetings and stuff. And so it makes sense that, you know, you're probably more on top of this stuff than I am. That's just the way it is. I do my best to do
And
it
I'm not
right.
here to point fingers. I know it's
Well,
probably
and-
feeling
but I'm
that way.
saying That's the way I feel.
Okay,
I'm
but what I'm saying
fingers
is you're
pointed
our
at me.
stakeholder, you're our city official.
Mm-hmm.
So in her letter, it mentions that it's up to the EPA to get engaged with our stakeholders. So I see our stakeholders as our city officials
Mm-hmm.
and our residents. So our residents have been making their voice heard, and I think maybe we need to make it a bit more strongly and directly to Congresswoman Dingle through letters and attending her town halls. But I'm asking you, who attends these DC conferences, and Chuck, who's your deputy, that when you're at these conferences, that you're putting more pressure on her to get action. Because it's been way too long in her
Well,
own
she's not
words.
at the meetings at the DCC. We can put pressure on it through the DCC to
Okay.
help clean up. But I want you to know that
So she's not attending those
two
meetings.
different worlds. When the DCC doesn't deal with the APA, we're dealing with Eagle. It's a
Right.
whole different monster. And that's part I.
Why does it have to be evil? Because in her letter, she says that she wants an assessment of what can be done and who can do that. So she's not limiting it to Eagle. It could be EPA, it could be Brownfield. There's lots of opportunities, but what is being done to investigate those opportunities? Because it sounds like it's been stagnant for at least a year and a half. That's all I'm asking for, is some
That's
action.
what I can do.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I've only filled in for the mayor twice in almost 4 years. He has a very good attendance record there. Congresswoman Dingle has never been there when I've been there, but she does have a representative that's at every one of those meetings, correct?
Cal Kirchen?
Cal Kirchen, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
Sorry,
all.
Elmer, you had-
she does have an ear, because I've spoken to
She has
Cal
an
about.
ear.
I wanted to
But
speak on what he's
But just
talking about.
remember, I mean, we're doing what we can. That's the best I can say. And, you know, we'll just, I don't know what else to say.
Okay, so then I will put it to the public to start engaging with Congresswoman Dingle through lenders and going to our town hall and making our voices heard that we want quicker action to find out whether it be Eagle, EPA, or some other brownfield funding. You know, there's lots of grants out there right now. You can tell by the meeting minutes that there's all kinds of grants from the communities that are getting support from the government. So
Yeah.
why aren't we going
And-
after
and
that
just-
money?
And not that this, well, it is applicable to this, is you're talking the Arkema property, it's gotta be hundreds, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, or not, if not millions. The ones, the grants that DCC are dealing with are grants that, they've got grants through other entities. You're talking, $40,000 here, $50,000 there. You're not talking millions of dollars of cleanups. You're
Yeah,
talking
because
like
we
you
know
find a
through
gas
feasibility
station
assessment-
or old show theater that had asbestos,
Not everything has to be cleaned up. Just like on the McLaughlin site, they just have to identify where the contaminants are, and if there's a pathway to the public, if there is, those contaminants get cleaned up. The rest can be capped and built upon until they decide, okay, I'm going to build a foundation here. Then there has to be another investigation done to see how deep those chemicals are and if it's going to bring them to the surface.
Yeah,
Just
we're
like when they
working
did the
towards that.
railroad and brought up more calcium hydroxide. And now that's in the Mogaugan Creek and in the roads.
Mr. Mayor, do we know where we're at with the dredging of the river?
It's 2 years away. I mean, and they're not even considering, you saw it in her letter too, they're not even gonna look at the Arkema property for 2 years. So there's another 2 years I'm doing nothing.
That's the east
So,
side. What about?
But it's all one property. So, and they have to use that property for the staging of the dredging. Now, obviously. it's
But can you
taken
do a
EPA
feasibility
years to
study in
get
the
that done. It's
meantime?
supposed to be 2 years ago. I mean.
Not digging on the west
I'm not
side, you're
running
not putting
EPA.
dredgings on the west
I
side.
can't force them to do anything. I'm doing the best I can with what I have.
Your Honor,
Yes.
can we have Mr. Skuro maybe give, this is a community development issue, maybe have him give an update. We worked on
Yeah.
it for years
Yeah.
with Congressman Dingle,
Yes.
John Dingle, for years.
John Dingle, yes.
They wouldn't talk to us, am I correct? Can you give a little update? We haven't just been sitting on our rear ends here.
Yeah, the update was that contract, they had funding to clean up the riverfront since 2014. However, EPA has to approve a plan to clean up the riverfront, and they have never approved the plan of action. Subsequent to that, they got involved with the dredging operation. The idea was they were going to dredge. Spoils were going to be put on that waterfront property, and what they call dewatering, and dry it off, and then truck that out.
But they're putting those on barges on the river and taking out the Point Malay.
They might be doing that now.
Yeah, so it's not even touch land.
Well, that's the last I heard, that they were gonna use the property for the staging area for the contamination.
Yes,
Unless
They're
they
using
change
equipment,
it.
but not for the dredgings.
Well,
Those
yeah,
are going on
dredging.
barges.
The plan I saw was dredging.
Okay, well,
They
we
were,
revisit.
and then that was, they're supposed to have a contract signed by 2019, 2020. The dredging was supposed to be over by 2022, and then starting in 2023, they were gonna start cleaning up the property and making it available. They're gonna clean it up to industrial standards. Any type of cleanup beyond that was gonna be at the cost of whoever picks up that property. But right now, I don't know where they're, I don't know if the contract with the dredging ever got signed, and we haven't heard anything since the original presentations that we've called. In terms of the property that they're talking about developing, that's the West Bryan Field. That's that 80-acre parcel that abuts Pennsylvania Avenue west of Alexis. It's Detroit Edison substations,
Yeah.
kind of in one edge of it. That property there is about 80 acres. We heard from them earlier this year that they were doing what's called a baseline environmental assessment. They're starting their process to identify where the hot spots were on their property. In that time, they said they were receiving some interest from industrial brokers to put an industrial facility up there. And we did get a call from somebody from a Friedman Associates, and that was about a year and a half ago, asking about the availability of the property.
So it's clear they're doing an assessment, so where are they at in the process of that assessment?
I don't know. I can find out.
That's the
but I
answers
don't
we
know.
need to start with. I appreciate that, thank you.
I don't normally do this, Elmer, but go ahead, make it quick.
Well, let me say this. Councilman Blanchett and the attorney, I pressured John Diggle to get the property cleaned up, and he went after it, and he got to the Surface Transportation Board in Washington, D.C., and they didn't do nothing about it except say, back to John Dingle, that the Superfund can't cover it because it ain't big enough. And as far as Debbie Dingle goes, she ain't gonna do nothing either, because the big wigs in New York that own it now ain't gonna do nothing either. And I don't know how you're gonna get it ever cleaned up, but I know Jim DeSanas, when he was a senator, told me that you could force it. I don't know how. Surface Transportation Board turned it down and told John Jingo that it wasn't big enough to be cleaned by the Superfund. And the only two that should remember that is Councilman Blanchett and Randy.
Thank you, Elmer. Anybody else?
I could try to answer your question.
Thank you for the
And
history.
she ain't gonna do nothing.
Hold her account.
Ken Kyleman, 20243 Coachwood.
Well,
I come forward tonight to share the disappointment I had when I saw the agenda for the study session and lack of any substantive issues beyond the construction activities occurring around the community being discussed. Most of those things could have been handled just by written reports being presented and made available to the public. This is the one time of the month that the entire council meets in public to be informed of the goings-on of the city and engage in dialogue about its past, its present, and its future. I was surprised that there was no plan to discuss the education process for the upcoming vote on the safety millage that we've been promised. Maybe you could have publicly discussed some of the allegations of fraud and abuse that are being leveled at the city and heard detailed reports on the facts rather than just snippets and recollections at council meetings with nothing being clearly resolved. Perhaps a discussion on a strategy to get some of our toxic sites cleaned up could have been held, rather than a discussion about our vague memories of the past. Maybe council members could report on what they've learned from the various committees on which they serve, but the other members do not. 3 times a month, if there's a quorum, the public is allowed to observe our city council perform its duties and hear its plans and reasoning. But much of the time is spent on awards and consent agendas and perfunctory votes, with little time being spent on detailed explanations. More needs to be discussed in the open, without the pressure of needing to come to a vote or worrying about how it looks politically. That's what I hope to witness at study sessions, and sadly, that's not the norm. I'm sorry we're not utilizing this monthly meeting to its fullest. I'm also sorry that we don't have more full and open conversations about the issues that truly matter. And as the mayor opened the meeting, I'd like to thank our service members, police officers, firefighters, other first responders for their service and sacrifice on this, the 22nd anniversary of the terrorist attack on America on 9/11. It was a day that united a nation in our compassion and in our resolve. May we never forget the lessons of that day. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we're done.
Anyone need any more snacks?